Well, good morning, everyone. Jeremiah Poop, your friendly local Boston Colonial tour guide in my civvies today. I'm afraid because it's my day off and I'm having breakfast at my favorite breakfast spot on the North Shore of Boston, Lincoln's Landing in Swampscott. It's amazing. If you're ever on the North Shore, it's worth a trip to Swampscott just to eat here. The service is incredible and the food is incredible. You won't regret it. One thing I really love about Lincoln's Landing, I don't even have to place an order here because when I come in, they already know what I'm always going to have.
An omelet, ham, American cheese, white toast buttered, side of sausage, side of bacon.
That's why you're awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm boring and predictable like that, but I always get the same thing, and I love it. I actually love this place because you come in and all the locals know you. It's pretty quiet this morning, not many people here, but usually it's packed with everybody from like senior citizens to high school kids and parents and stuff like that. And actually, the one time I did not order my usual ham and cheese omelet, etc., everybody got up and did a standing ovation because they just were in shock that Jeremiah Poop had ordered something different for once. But I also had a really embarrassing incident here once. I'm not going to tell you inside the restaurant there because it's just too embarrassing to relive. I was not able to show my face here for a while. I'll tell you about it in a moment. So back to our story. So a few years ago, I was having breakfast at Lincoln's Landing, sitting at my usual table as I always do, and it was a pretty quiet morning. There was like only a few people in there besides myself. It was like 7 in the morning when they opened, and it was a 97-year-old World War II vet who usually sits in there sometimes, and also these 4 boys from the Swampscott Big Blue football high school team. They were all seniors, and actually one of them, who we'll call Mason for the purposes of this video, was actually my next door neighbor's son. And I knew his parents very well. In fact, his mom would often drive me to Stop and Shop to do my groceries since I can't drive and I didn't want to spend like the money on Uber or Peapod or whatever. And sometimes Mason or his sister would also drive me. And unfortunately now they're both off at college. I've got just the mom to drive me, although I guess she has a 14-year-old son who in a couple of years hopefully will be able to continue the rite of passage in that family of taking Jeremiah Poop on his grocery runs. But anyway, I'm sitting in my chair at my favorite table enjoying my breakfast, and I sat back and the whole back of the chair, which is metal and wood, snapped off, and I did a backward somersault practically onto the ground. And this was hugely humiliating for me because only the day before at the office at the place where I work, my tour company, I was sitting in a chair having breakfast. It was a plastic chair and the back broke off and I fell. So 2 consecutive days of breaking chairs. I know I'm not the most svelte guy on earth. I'm 220 pounds currently, if you must know, but I'm really, 2 chairs in one day. Am I that big? Maybe I should do a diet or something. But I fall on the floor, and the 4 football players, the high school football players, rush to help me. Poop, are you okay? And they're were trying to pick me up, and the sweet little old World War II vet comes over. He's like, "Can I help? Do you boys need help?" And Mason's like, "No, Mr. Chadwick, you fought a D-Day. You already helped. You're 97, so we got this." And it was sweet of him. Yeah, and he was a D-Day vet, so that's true. But they picked me up, and as they're lifting me up, Mason's like, "You got to lay off the rich desserts, Poop." And one of his friends is like, "I don't think we need to go to the gym after school today to work out because we're getting our lifting in right now and stuff." And I'm like, "Guys, I appreciate you picking me up, but I don't really need the running commentary. Thank you very much." And the funny thing is, so they picked me up, and I was absolutely mortified. I'm like, my God, I can never show my face in this eatery ever again. But speaking of Mason, it's funny because I had a little story about him. So basically, living next door to him, I've watched Mason grow up. I think of him almost like a nephew and stuff. In fact, when he graduated high school as a graduation present, I got him and 2 of his friends tickets to the Firefly Festival in Delaware because I know they wanted to go. And actually, I don't think his mom was too thrilled about that. She's like, "I don't know, she's like, I don't know about this. What about the drugs?" And I said, "Well, they're going to have to buy those themselves. I'm not paying for everything." But anyway, a funny story about Mason was the summer, the summer before, a few months before my chair broke, because that happened to fall of his senior year during his football season, which is why the guys were all wearing their Big Blue varsity jackets. That's what the football team in Swampscott is called, Big Blue. Go Big Blue, always root for them. Actually, I had the awkward experience once. One Thanksgiving, one of my cousins played football for Swampscott's Big Blue team, and my other cousin played for the Marblehead Magicians, and those 2 teams always play against each other Thanksgiving, and Marblehead won that year. And then I had to go to my aunt's house on Marblehead Neck, and I always get seated at the children's table, and we're sitting there, and I'm seated at a table with all these, teenagers, even though I'm like well into middle age. And someday I'll graduate to the grown-ups table, I guess. And so two of the boys at the table, one had just lost a game to another one, and it got a little nasty, and there ended up being a physical altercation between the two 17-year-old boys at the table. And it was like, you ever seen that scene in A Christmas Story where the Bumpus dogs come in and they just like, there's the turkey and all the food's on the floor? That's what happened. I mean, all our food on the floor. So I migrated to the adult table at that point, that's for sure. But I digress, as usual. So one night I'd hung out in Salem with a friend of mine who's a tour guide there, and she and I have worked together for years. We used to do like ghost tours in Salem together and stuff. I don't really do tours in Salem that much, but I was a licensed Salem tour guide for a time. And we're just sitting, she's dropping me off at my house, and I was like trying to persuade her to come in to play some Monopoly with me, because we kept making, plans to play Monopoly, and we never did. And she's like, well, it's 1 a.m. I'm like, well, you don't have to work tomorrow, so why not? It's Friday night. And we're like sitting in my car, and ironically, we started talking about the weirdest things that had ever happened to us. Well, so many, we have all day for me. And as we're talking, we suddenly see Mason, my neighbor's 17-year-old son, run out of the house butt naked and run to the car and get something, his car in the driveway, and then run back to the house. And apparently it looked like he couldn't get the door open. He's like banging on the door, and then he like ran around the back of the house and disappeared. And my friend's like, did I just see a naked teenage boy run out to his car and then like run back to the house and then run around the back? And I'm like, yes, you did. That would be my neighbor's 17-year-old son, Mason. And she's like, and it looked like he had a massive boner. And I'm like, yep, it certainly did. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. He does have a pretty nice car, so who knows? But I don't want to know, actually. I'm like, well, let's go inside. I'm like, I don't want to know. And so we go inside and we're starting to set up our Monopoly game. And suddenly, while I'm setting up Monopoly on the kitchen table, my doorbell rings. I'm like, who the hell would be ringing my doorbell at like almost 2 a.m, like 1:30 in the morning? And she like looked out my door and she's like, actually, your naked 17-year-old neighbor. I'm like, what? I'm like, is he still naked? And she's like, yep, butt naked. And so I come to the door and I open him, like, Mason, what are you doing? And he's like, poop, I'm locked out of my fucking house naked. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. And I'm like, well, he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have a girl over and she's like not answering. I'm ringing the bell. I locked the door by accident. And then I went around the back to try to go into the deck door, and that's locked too. I don't know what to fucking do. Can I like use your phone and like call her? And I'm like, sure, but get in here quickly, because before somebody sees you. And this neighborhood already thinks I'm weird enough coming home in like colonial clothes every now and then without seeing one of the town's favorite high school football players standing naked on my door at 1 a.m. So come in here before we both get arrested. So he comes in. I'm like, first order of business, let me go get you a bath towel to cover up and wrap around your waist. So I get him a bath towel. So I'm like, he had his hand over his but it wasn't really doing the trick. So he puts the towel on. I gave him the phone. He's like, fuck, I don't know her number. I'm like, you are about to bang a girl and you don't know her number. He's like, poop, nobody knows anybody's digits anymore. He's like, do you know your own phone number? He's like, I seem to remember you told me you don't even know your own phone number anymore. I'm like, that is true, actually. So I'm like, well, now that you've got a towel, why don't you go back to your house and try ringing the bell and knocking again and see if she answers. And before you go, why don't you write like a little note to slip under the door if she doesn't answer, just saying you're at your neighbor's house and to call him. And I wrote my number down on the thing. He's like, okay. And a few minutes later, he comes back. He's like, yeah, I tried the door again, nothing. I'm like, are you sure she didn't run out on you? And he's like, no. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. But he's like, I slipped the note under the door, so hopefully she'll get it soon and stuff. And so I closed it. I'm like, well, you can chill here until then. And he's like, what if she doesn't like get the note? And I'm like, well, then I guess you crash here for the night. I'm not about to let you sleep outside in nothing but a towel, of course. You're my neighbor. And so he's just sitting dejectedly on my couch in my living room, nothing but the bath towel. And I was like, if you have nothing better to do, you're welcome to join us playing Monopoly. And he's like, all right. So he came in. He's like, mind if I grab some potato chips? And I looked at him like, Mason, what were you even thinking? He's like, poop. My parents are gone for the weekend. I had a girl over. Things were escalating pretty quickly, getting pretty intense. And I realized my condoms were in my car, so I ran out to get my condoms. And I said, okay, well, now it makes sense, because a few minutes ago we were sitting in our car, me and my friend, sitting in her car, and we saw you run from your house to your car naked with a massive boner and then run back. And so at least now we know what was going on with that. And he's like, oh my God, you saw that? He's like, sorry, dude. Poop, I'm an impulsive, horny teenage boy, and I've had a few beers. I also just smoked up on my deck a little bit ago, so I'm pretty baked. My judgment's kind of impaired right now. And I'm like, okay. Well, I was like, well, even if you're high, you could at least slip on, your boxers or something. And he's like, Poop, it was the heat of the moment. I was like, oh, was it telling you what your heart meant? And he's like, what? I'm like, remember that old 80s song by the band Asia, the supergroup there, Asia, Heat of the Moment? Remember that song? It was like, it was the heat of the moment, telling you what your heart meant. And he's like, no, that's a little before my time. And I said, well, I guess I couldn't really judge Mason too harshly, because I actually, when I was about his age, got locked out of my hotel room in Moscow butt naked. And that's a story for a whole other video, actually. And we're getting all ready to play Monopoly and stuff. He's sitting at my table munching on his potato chips. He's like, I don't fucking believe this. He's like, I'm supposed to be getting laid right now. And instead, I'm supposed to be getting laid right now. And instead I'm sitting in a bath towel in your kitchen, playing Monopoly with two 50-year-olds. And I'm like, I'm 45. Thank you very much, asshole. And then we were starting to play, and I got into a bit of an argument with the woman who was over my house because she wanted the top hat. And I always use the top hat when I play Monopoly. I have since the first time I played it when I was 9. I've been playing with that top hat for 40 years, since 1985. Thank you very much. And at that very moment, my phone rang, and it was a number I didn't know. And I said, Mason, you get it, because I have a feeling it's for you. And sure enough, it was the girl that he had over. And she's like, where are you? He said, I was trying to get in and stuff. But no answer. And she said, oh, sorry, I was in the bathroom. So, like, he got up. He's like, Poop, gotta go. We'll do a rain check on the Monopoly game and stuff, and I'll get your towel back to you sometime soon. And so he ran off and presumably, got laid. But anyway, back to Lincoln's Landing Diner, where, the 4 high school football players, including Mason, have just helped me up off the ground. And I said to Mason, I'm like, I'm so fucking mortified. I don't think I can ever show my face in here again. He's like, Poop, don't be embarrassed. He's like, you don't have to be embarrassed in front of me. I'm your neighbor. I've known you my whole life. He's like, you're friends with my parents, my whole family. He's like, you're almost like an uncle to me. He's like kind of a weird uncle, but still like an uncle to me. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm still really embarrassed. He's like, Poop, you've seen me naked with a boner. I don't think you ever need to be embarrassed in front of me about anything ever again in your life. So, and I was like, oh, that's true, isn't it? Thanks for reminding me. I'm like, thank you for putting that in perspective. So that did make me feel marginally better.